One of the only ways that you can actually make a difference and stand out is using your personal brand, because people can copy your methodology, they can copy your words, they can copy your ideas, but they can't copy you.
No.
So it's become more important now.
I'm Mike Harris and I help businesses to successfully grow their profit and turnover. In the last year alone, I have helped over 20 companies at least double in size. And I work with a mixture of firms for small, medium and large businesses, including startups and multinationals. In today's fast-paced world of social media, there's one thing you need more than anything else: a personal brand. But do you have one? Is it catapulting your business to success? Or perhaps it's holding you back? In fact, do you even know what a personal brand is? To answer these questions and to give you free advice on personal brand, I recently recorded this episode with a special guest. Hello and welcome back to All You Leaders in Strategy. I'm Mike Harris and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Sapna Pieroux.
Hello.
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 Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Award-winning author of Let's Get Visible, which we'll be talking about a bit later on, but also a coach, an entrepreneur, and the brand queen that you may have seen on LinkedIn with all her posts. And I'm sure we'll talk about all of these things as we come on to the podcast. So over to you for a few minutes just to tell us about you.
Thank you very much, Mike. So I'm Sapna Pieroux. I'm a personal and business brand consultant, author, as you said, and speaker. And I work generally with entrepreneurs, leaders, teams to help them stand out in their industry, articulate their value, and as my book says, supercharge their business growth. So I do that with my vision process. I've spent 30 years building big brands. The first 20 odd years were in media, working for some media giants such as EMAP and Chrysalis and the Telegraph. We were talking about that earlier. And now I was working with big brands such as Sony Ericsson, L'Oreal, Mercedes, and I've taken that big brand know-how and experience and now work with business leaders to help them grow not just their business brands, but now also their personal brands, which is kind of an area that is very much kind of in vogue at the moment, but definitely growing.
Yeah, excellent. So today's icebreaker that we're going to go with, which is quite a popular one when we do these, is name somebody fictional that you admire as a leader and why.
Okay, so I'm going to have to go with, can I have two?
Yeah.
It's either Wonder Woman or Superwoman. Yeah. I'm actually wearing a Superwoman t-shirt here. So, and there's a whole story behind that. But I think it's the strong female, because they're kind of like breaking boundaries in what was quite a male-dominated environment. And then they came along and using their, kind of powers have managed to make an impact as well. So that's why I love them. And I wear the T-shirts because some of my clients call me Super Seps as it is, because I get some powerful results for them. And they sort of say, oh my God, how did you do that? You got magic powers, superpowers. So that's, so it's become a bit of a thing.
Okay, excellent. So let's start with the book. Let's talk about Let's Get Visible. How did you come about actually writing the book?
So I started my business back in about 2016, and it's a brand consultancy. My background, as I say, was in media, but before that I trained as a designer, and the business started a little bit accidentally, actually, after my husband set up his business, which is a tech company, and I did his branding, I did his brochure. His brochure was seen at an entrepreneurial event by the speaker and held up as the gold standard. And he said, this, guys, is the standard that you should be aiming for with your brand. And that's the very short story is that my husband came home with 7 business cards that day. And I was studying to be an interior designer when I grew up. I'm still waiting to grow up. But I was studying to do that because I'd had children and 22 years in media. And I was like, I'm not going back in there. The hours were long. And, if only I'd have known that the hours of running your own business are even longer. So I just thought, well, I'll start my own business. And then I realized that I had this opportunity to help business leaders because of my marketing, because of my design, because of my sales background, my advertising background, that I had the skill set to be able to help smaller businesses grow, as well as the global ones that I've been working with before. So that came about, Let's Get Visible came about when I joined the same KPI course that my husband had been on,
Right.
which is run by Daniel Priestley, who I always describe as the entrepreneur's entrepreneur. Nice bit of product placement there. Thank you. I should hold my own book up, really, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
So the part of the 5 Ps that Daniel talks about in how to grow your profile is profile, product, pricing, publishing, and partnership.
Right.
And so publishing was one of the things I always felt I had a book in me. So this kind of summarizes almost 25 years of brand building experience. And it went on to win a business book award. So it came out in 2020, won a business book award, which is a global award ceremony. And that catapulted my business kind of globally. I started picking up clients from all over the world. But what it also did was made me visible, which wasn't I was actually quite worried about bringing the book out, because I was like, well, can I not just like hide behind my work? I just wanted my wonderful work to speak for itself. And that's kind of when I realized that that actually business doesn't work like that, and people actually now are connecting with the individuals. And so as soon as I got visible, that's when the business took up.
I think, to be fair, it's always been I mean, I can go back a long time, and I had a boss, great boss, and he was always had great phrases. And one of his phrases was, people work with people they like.
Yes, absolutely.
So he said, so if they don't know you, how do they like you? So he, I'm going back a long time. He was really focused on the importance of the relationship and making that connection. So, a lot of these things evolve and change, but they're not necessarily brand new. They're an evolution of things that have gone before. And I think certainly in that sense, the philosophy of people that work with people they like is universal.
I think that's absolutely true. But like the sort of digital era, it tended to be in-person connection. So your circle of the people that you knew was relatively small.
Yes.
And now, especially since COVID, when a lot of businesses went online, and a lot of, suddenly everybody was on LinkedIn, suddenly everybody's, bringing out podcasts and the digital platforms that are, allowing people to get their message out, it's got a lot noisier. And one of the only ways that you can actually make a difference and stand out is using your personal brand, because people can copy your methodology, they can copy your words, they can copy your ideas, but they can't copy you.
No.
So it's become more important now.
Well, and it's much harder because people get to know you much easier for sitting with you face to face, and you've got that interaction. Doing it online, it's much harder for people actually to really get to know each other, I think. So.
Well, it is, because we scroll, right?
Yes,
so we scroll so much. Do you know how much we scroll, Mike? Apparently it's the height of Mount Everest every 20 days.
Blimey.
I know. Who knew your little thumb was that athletic, right? So people have to train quite hard for that if you're actually doing Mount Everest, but your thumb is doing that. So people can watch a video, and like if it doesn't grab them in the first couple of seconds,
Tell me about it.
your yesterday's digital chip paper, if you like. And so that is one of the challenges. And also, again, growing personal brand is people feel that they know you when they've seen your face online. And it does help towards that like, and trust. And apparently the brain can't tell the difference as to whether they've met you online or they've met you in real life. That's why when you see a famous person, sometimes you kind of go, do I know them? Do I know them from somewhere? Like, because you feel you know them already.
I've got a little anecdote about that. A couple of weeks ago, I was in a client's reception area, and this guy has come down the lift, and he's coming out through security, and he goes, "Mike Harris," and I think, "Who are you?" I have no idea who you are. And he comes over and shakes my hand. He goes, "I feel like I know you already. I see you on LinkedIn all the time." And so there you go. It just shows you.
It does happen. Yeah. I had a lady who, this is very funny actually, because I made a LinkedIn post out of it. And I was on the tube going to an event, and there was this girl, I got on the tube, and there's this girl like clocked me and then kind of gave me a shy smile. And I was like, do I know her?
Yeah.
And then I sat down and she went, "You're Sapna Pieroux, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like this. And she was like, "I've seen your podcast and I've seen you on LinkedIn." And I've seen, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like this. And it was like,
Yeah.
we turned up, we were going to the same event. And then I was telling her about somewhere that I was speaking on stage in a couple of weeks' time. She bought a ticket to that. So I did this whole post about this at Meet My New Stalker.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and I was like, she's not really my stalker, but then she's like, she's getting people coming to her going, oh, you're Sapna's stalker.
Yeah, brilliant.
But it was just,
But it just shows you, doesn't
yeah.
it, that you know. But that phrase you used earlier, they get to know you, then get to like you, get to trust.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very hard through the social media, I think. So, and we'll come back to that. No
repetition,
doubt.
I think, is part of it.
Yeah.
And meeting people in real life, but that's not possible necessarily all the time. And you know, people are busy. So, and actually, people, I always say recognition is the first thing before know, like, and trust. So, if you actually keep putting yourself out there, that repetition will build that recognition as well.
Absolutely. I was on one of your programs, sort of
one of my webinars.
Thank you. That's the phrase. And you had a story that I thought was incredible that I'm going to ask you about.
Okay.
And just as an aside, we'll cut this bit out. If you don't want to talk about this, just say so.
I've talked about it in public. I think
okay,
I know what you're talking about.
So and just to key into it, the subject matter was about how we spend most of our lives trying to fit in, and then all of a sudden we have to, through personal branding, find a way of standing out.
Yeah.
And you just had a great journey, I thought, great story to tell for you personally on how that sort of happened for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the corporate side of things, I've worked 20 odd years in corporate. I understand the company journey, and you are seen, or you feel like you are a small cog in a big machine, and so that's how I was, you know. And then it was only when I started my own business that and writing the book that actually catapulted me forward. And I just, actually, building the personal brand is the way forward, because I did hide behind a company logo when I started out, and I was like, well, I'll create this Innovisions ID company, and it's really me. I didn't have a team at that point. But I wanted to sound like bigger than I was. Yeah. And then actually you realise that people connect with the human being. And it was only really first with the book, and then actually when I had the cancer journey, so I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2022. I didn't promote the business anymore because I had other things on my mind, but I stayed visible, and it wasn't something I'd thought about really, but I'd stayed visible to talk about breast cancer, and because I wanted to raise awareness, and I raised money, I raised thousands of cancer. And then when I came back into work, people were coming to me going, can you help me with my personal brand? And I hadn't realised what I'd done, but I'd stayed visible. And they got to know me through a tough part of my life. And actually that made me a more rounded human being. And now I kind of, when I work with companies as well as individuals, some managers might think, well, I don't want to build the personal brands of my people, because that means that they might be too big, and then they might leave me and somebody else might poach them, or they might get too visible. But actually it's about your employees feeling seen and heard and valued, and being, allowing their voice to be an advocate for your company, actually. And if you're worried that they're going to leave you, then maybe create somewhere that they don't want to leave.
Absolutely.
So I think that's one thing at the moment that's that employee advocacy is kind of a really big part of growing people's personal brands from a company point of view.
So just talking about that for a moment, and we talked about this a little bit before we come onto the podcast, is maybe the contrast between branding and business branding and personal branding, and they obviously overlap. But what's your thinking about, because the world's changed? I mean, I shared with you that probably up to even a year ago, I wouldn't have thought about personal branding. It just wasn't on the radar. Yeah. And yet now I realise
things are moving. Things are
moving. The world's changing. Yeah. And if I don't want to get left behind, I've got to think about. So I just thought it might be worth exploring a little bit about business branding versus personal branding.
Well, I just sort of mentioned a microcosm of that, but I'll expand on that. So I talk about when brand first started, the evolution of brand, if you like. When brands first started, it was like the 1950s. We had television, and suddenly you've got soap brands sponsoring. That's how we got soap operas. That's where it was. It was like washing powders sponsoring soap operas, and so brands were built very much from the top down. You had broadcast media. TV, then radio before that, then TV, posters, outside, outdoor advertising, and then later cinema. And the brands are telling you what you should be thinking about them. And that has flipped massively round now. So people sort of started businesses and they're kind of like, okay, this is the way we are. These are our values. This is what we do. And this is how we build a brand. But what's happened now is that brands are built very much from the ground up. It's about user experience. It's about, customer experience. It's about reviews. It's about people will talk to each other about their, or they'll go online and they'll say, and 7 times more people will tell people of a bad experience than they will a good one, right? So they're more vocal. And so that's why it's really important to get the employees amongst, because they're literally your, people on the ground who are building that brand for you then. And that's why it's really important to kind of get people more aware of the personal brand that they are developing. Yes, it's good for their career overall, but it's also good for the company that there are more touch points. Again, we're talking about brand touch points. Why wouldn't you want your employees to be on board with and bought into the vision?
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. So, we spoke a little bit earlier about strategy, and because Leaders in Strategy podcast,
absolutely,
we look at strategy. So how important do you think strategy is to branding, whether that's business branding or personal branding?
I think it's fundamental. Half my book's taken up with strategy. Right. So before we start looking at colours and fonts, so he's just showing the book again for anyone who's not listening on YouTube. So strategy is the core. As I say, I've got a background in marketing and in sales, and so that came before you do anything. And the way that I always talk about things in visual ways, and with my kind of interest in property and construction and interior. I qualified as an interior designer as well. It's like trying to choose wallpaper. Doing your branding before you've got your strategy is like trying to choose your wallpaper before you've dug the foundations.
Yes.
Right. And without that, it falls over. So people who do rush straight into the branding work will often find that they're directionless. They don't know, they've got the logo and they don't know what to do, but they don't know how to show up, and they don't know how they should come across in their messaging. They don't know what they should be talking about. They're not sure how to position themselves. So it's all about the positioning, the messaging, the getting clear on what it is that you want to achieve with the business, with your own personal brand, how you want to be perceived before you start making that visual.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another analogy, because I love me analogies, is I liken brand to being like an iceberg.
Yeah.
So what you see above the iceberg is the visual part, which is the branding and the messaging, and the tip of the iceberg is the logo, which is why everyone just kind of wants to rush to that summit and we'll get a logo done. But what they don't realize is all the stuff underneath the water that's actually holding that, that's actually supporting that. And it's not seen, but it's very much felt.
Yeah, I got a client recently who brought me in to work on their business plan and their strategy. And the day I started there, they'd just started with a consultant to produce the website. And I said, well, you've got to wait until we've finished the business plan. You can't produce the website because it will not represent your business plan. You've got to have the plan.
Yeah, you've got to know what you want
before you can.
Absolutely, and that's what I've turned clients away before when they've gone, well, I don't really know who I want to work with, and I don't really know. And I'm like, you're not ready to create your brand. You're not ready to make that visual until you get the strategy first. Go back to your business coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Get the answers and then come back.
And the problem they've got is they went ahead with the website anyway, and now they're going.
Now they're a bit lost.
We're going to have to go back over the website because we need all of this to be represented into the website. So So it's good to hear that from your point of view, that the importance that strategy plays.
Well, not everybody does it that way, but I certainly do with my background.
For reasons I said earlier, I obviously think that you start with the strategy and then the other things comply with it.
You've got it in your business name.
Exactly. It's in the business name. So, okay. I'm conscious of time and that you've got a hard stop and need to get away. So I'm going to I always finish the podcast by setting some homework for the viewers and listeners so that they've got something to take away and they can do after the podcast. So I'm going to give you the privilege of setting today's homework. Is there any homework that you think you should, you can set the viewers and listeners that they can take away from today?
I would encourage them to look at their FABs actually and see where
Yeah.
they want to be in the next 3 to 5 years, either as a personal brand or as a company brand, depending
Brilliant.
on whether they wish to rebrand their company or themselves.
Okay, excellent. So in the description to the podcast, whether it's on YouTube or audio, we'll put some links for yourself, your website, where they can buy the book, your LinkedIn profile, etc., so they can come and find you. And I do actually, as I said earlier, I genuinely would recommend having a look at this. It certainly has got me thinking differently, and I'm sure it will get lots of other people thinking different as well. So thank you for joining us. It's
Thank
been really,
you so much
really
for
good
having
fun.
me, Mike.
Yeah,
It's been a
excellent.
real pleasure.
Good. So there you have it, today's podcast, and come back and join us for the next one. Not sure exactly what the subject will be yet, but it will be on something to do with leadership and strategy. I'll see you then.